today we're going to be looking at all things front derailleur. So I'm going to show you how to adjust and index your front derailleur today. Generally there are three common faults or problems that we encounter with the front derailleur, and that is number one, it throws a chain off when you're shifting either onto the big cog or small cog. Number two, you've got chain rub or a noise of chain rub when you're in the low or high gears. And thirdly, you've got it simply doesn't shift, or it's not shifting in a sluggish manner. So we're going to take you step by step on how to adjust and set up your derailleur, and hopefully that'll solve all those problems. So as you can see from that photo, all you're going to need is an Allen key, maybe a 4mm or 5mm depending on the size of your clamp bolt. You're going to need a crosshead screwdriver and a torque wrench to tighten obviously that bolt up at the end of the job. So yeah, nice and simple, doesn't take 5 minutes. So before we get cracking, let's have a very quick explanation on how the front derailleur works. You've got two forms of adjustment, which is your upper or higher and lower limiting screws. Now those do exactly what they say on the tin. They limit the amount of travel that the derailleur moves. So all they're doing is stopping it going so far outboard and so far inboard. So if your chain is being constantly thrown off, it's generally going to be your limiting screws that's not set correctly, because what it's doing is allowing the derailleur to shift too far out and pull your chain off the chain ring. Okay, so that's always, if your chain's being thrown off, it's generally because of your limiting screws are set incorrectly. Then the second one is your cable tension, and that's down to if you've got sluggish shifting or it's not actually shifting from your through the system, which then transfers into pulling the derailleur across to your stop or limiting screw. So that's basically how it works. So the starting point, first of all, run your bike into the lowest gear on your rear cassette and drop it down onto your small chain ring on the front. So that's your starting point to begin this adjustment. So what we're looking at now is we're going to start with the lower limiting screw. So a lot of people, before you start getting involved with that, what I always like to do when I don't know the bike is I will actually remove and undo the clamping bolt, so I'm totally confident that there's no tension in the system. The derailleur cable removed, I'm quite confident now that there is no tension in the system, because the only thing that can add tension into this system is that cable. So with that removed, all we're relying now is our lower limit screw. So let's look at how we adjust that now. So adjusting the lower limiting screw is super simple. What you're looking for is you'll either have a H and an L on either one of these screws. If you don't have one of a H or an L identifying which is the higher and lower limiting screw, on a derailleur such as this, what you're looking for is the screw nearest the frame will be your lower limiting screw. Okay, very simple. So it's very similar to the rear derailleur. You screw it one way, so screwing it clockwise will bring the derailleur one way, and screwing it anti-clockwise will take it the other way. So all you're doing here now is sighting that through and screwing it one way or the other to leaving a very fine gap, so there is no chain rub at all. So now the lower limiting screw is set, we don't need to touch it, that's it, finished. Now all we're doing now is going to reattach the derailleur cable, but before we do that, what we want to do is track through the system, and you'll find an inline barrel adjuster. Make sure that barrel adjuster is wound all the way in, as you can see on this next little clip, and that'll give us the maximum amount of adjustment in the system to just fine tune it as we go near the end of the job. Okay, so we'll just attach the cable. So all we're doing is pulling that nice and tight just to take out any of the slack in that cable. So with our cable reattached, it's time to do our first shift and see how we're getting on. Here we go. So as you can see, the derailleur has moved, yet not sufficient enough, i.e. there is not enough tension in the cable or in the system to pull the derailleur all the way across to facilitate that shift. As you can see, there's still movement in that derailleur, and that's a simple check. So it's not actually up onto the limiting screw, so there is more movement for it to come, which means it need more tension. So we're just going to drop it back down and add some tension to that cable with the barrel adjuster. So I'm just unwinding that barrel adjuster now, and we'll try again. So you can see there, it's shifted up a little bit sluggish, which indicates to me still needs a little bit more tension, but we'll come back to that, because what we need to do now is set the higher limiting screw. So to do that, we drop the rear gears down to the smallest cog. There we go. So you're on smallest cog at the back, biggest cog at the front. Okay. So what we're looking for now, as you can see there is still movement in that derailleur. But what we don't want to do is set it too much that it pulls the chain off and off your front chain ring. So there we set the higher limiting screw. So what we're looking for here is a nice small gap between the chain and the outer plate of your derailleur. So very simple now, just to finally set that higher limiting screw. You're in the small cog at the front, big cog at the front. We've moved the derailleur onto the large chain ring, and there's still probably going to be a bit of play in there, indicating there's not enough tension in there. But before we tension that cable up to its final resting place, what we want to do is make sure that upper limit screw is in the right position. So what we do is take up the slack of the derailleur. So with your thumb and finger, you're pushing the derailleur so it's up against your upper limit screw. So now the upper limit screw is what's stopping the travel of that derailleur. Then it's a visual check to have a look in between the outer plate of your derailleur and your chain. So you should have just a very small gap there to prevent any chain rub. You screw it in. That will bring the derailleur inbound, and if it's not enough, you take it anti-clockwise and that'll bring it outbound. So there we go, we've got just a nice gap there, so we've no chain rub on that chain at all. Okay, so now we just need to finally tension that cable. So as you can see, there's still a little bit left in there. So all we do now, we go to our barrel adjuster. So we drop it down, add a little bit more tension on the barrel adjuster. Flick it back up. As you can see, there's still a little bit of play, so a little bit more tension. And there we have it. No more play in there. So all I've done there is any slack in the system I've taken up with the barrel adjuster. So I'm now confident that when we shift, it's shifting and the derailleur is hitting against the upper limit screw and there's no slack in it. So we should have a nice crisp change when we drop it down. So let's try that now. Yep, drop it down and back up. Very nice. Down, up. So yeah, very happy with that. Front derailleur indexed perfectly.